and I apologize for everybody that I have my back to. I can't get in a position where I can see everybody.
Jan back.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Police Board initial meeting. First and foremost, I want to welcome everybody here, especially the board members, public, and those of you watching. I'm going to pass it over to our mayor and then our city manager for introductions, and then we'll go into everybody else sitting up here. I do want to just state as a disclaimer that to the public and those viewing, it is a listening session. I do ask that we just remain, respectful and just listen kind of to how the flow of the board goes and all of those things that come along with it. So again, thank you all for joining us. Again, it's been a ride, and so we're here, and let's just get going. So I'm going to pass it over to the mayor.
Thank you.
Valentino, there you go.
Thank you very much, Erica. And Erica is just an amazing rock behind the scene. She's a great coordinator. She will keep us to task, which is really well. She did a fantastic job on the police collaborative, and I appreciate that. And there's a couple of familiar faces that also participate in it, so I appreciate that. I'd like to start by welcoming this group on the first night of the Police Review Board. It's a very special night, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your participation in this, and I appreciate the volunteerism, because that is tough to come by. Usually when people volunteer, they get used and overused sometimes. So we appreciate it. Your commitment is going to be very key to this being a successful board. There's a couple of counselors here who might want to say something. I know the city manager wants to say something. Before I leave that, I just want to draw attention to 15.4, which is PRB membership shall. It's about responsibilities, and I think these are key. Conduct yourselves at all times in a manner that will maintain public confidence in the fairness, impartiality, and integrity of the PRB. Obey all laws and ordinances of the city. Obey all laws protecting individual rights to privacy and confidentiality records. Recuse themselves from participating in the review of any complaint in which they have personal, professional, or financial conflict, and avoid ex parte discussions of any manner that comes before the PRB. Confidentiality will be extremely important to this board. The last thing I want to say is in terms. We talk about terms, and there's 9 people we're missing on ours. In 15.3.3, I believe, is exactly where that goes. I need this team to follow those rules, and they're 1-year, 2-year, and 3-year terms. And what I'm asking, what council is asking, is you guys have that discussion about your commitment and what you like your commitment to be to the board, and come back to us with a recommendation, and council will ratify that in a vote at a council meeting. Okay? So thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Any questions? You guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Cameron.
Just to follow up on that note, so if somebody decides they're going to be a 1-year term, remember at the end of the 1 year, you can re-up. And typically, we've done it with lots of committees in the city. When people want to continue to serve, council goes along with that. So don't feel if you're taking a 1 year, that's all you're going to get a chance to serve. And maybe that does also maybe meet your personal needs. But I just, in bigger terms, I want to just thank you all for doing this. I am really so great to see all these people. I know there's so many people supporting and behind each one of you. And there was so many great candidates for this. It was a difficult decision to come up with a board. We managed to get through it, and I think that it's also in the formation process at the very, very beginning. We have to all be proud of ourselves for a couple of reasons. This PRB law that you have in front of you is a draft done by the PPP. The young people of this community came up with the draft. And that is what we started with the city council. And we had a lot of things to get through to do that. And we had 9 people worked on that point and created this document. So it's a triumph right to the roots of this community, what we've done. And then I think that we work through the process. And the democratic process worked and got us to this point. It was difficult, but I think we should all be proud that democracy won the day. And I'm grateful for us and for our country. I really am proud of you all, and I'm going to take a picture of this crowd from over there, and I'm going to shut up now. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to quickly thank you all. You know, to echo what Ken said, this was a real people's movement that fought for this board, from the mass movements in the street after the murder of George Floyd to the way that the young organizers wrote their own legislation. It was a real people's movement, and I couldn't be prouder to be sitting in front of a real people's board. I trust this group to take on the work, and I look forward to a new era of accountability in this city. And so thank you all.
Echo my colleagues. They really said my feelings here. It's a real thrill. I mean, I know you look at this council and we all sort of shake our heads and says, I wish we could do more, I wish we could do more. You know what we did? We did this. We did this board, and I am very proud of that, and I'm proud to see all of you stepping up to serve in the capacity of making it a reality. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to your good work and moving forward.
So just a quick welcome as well. Thank you for serving. You're in great hands with Erica. She is the lead staff person. I am her support behind the scenes to help her, but she'll be leading the charge. We'll be the conduits as you work with the police department as well in your journey and in your role in your job. So I'll pass it over to her. She'll be leading the meetings. You won't. You'll see other staff members come and go as needed for your work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So obviously I've met most of you and I know you from the community, but I'm Erica Collins. I am the city manager's assistant and leading a few of these charges, as we know. And this one is really exciting. Like I said before, it's a learning lesson for everybody, all parties involved, everybody impacted. And I just hope that we can all steer forward. And that's why I'm here to kind of help maintain that and make sure that we can do that for the betterment of everybody in our community. So thank you all. You all have my contact info. I'm constantly sending you emails. So I'm available via email, phone, anything that you guys need for that support. And as we continue forward, things that come up in these processes and moving on as we take this journey together. So welcome. I'm going to start with Charles, and then I'm going to go around if you guys want to do some brief introductions. I would say just, obviously your name, what you do, obviously you live in Geneva. And I do like to have everybody kind of give one little piece of what you do for self-care, for your mental health. What is one piece of that? Okay. So 3 items: your name, what you do, a little piece about Geneva if you'd like, and then a self-care item that you guys personally participate in. So go ahead, Charles.
Okay, I'm Charles King. I edit, design, and index nonfiction books for a living. I've lived in Geneva for 20 years. I'm the father of 3. We're a multiracial family. My wife and I adopted our oldest and youngest from South Korea. Our kids are 10, 13, and 15. I have the unusual distinction of being somebody who attends most city council meetings and other meetings in Geneva, and I've been doing that for 6 years now, and that perhaps qualifies me as a crazy person. But I've enjoyed serving on the planning board and the active transportation committee and various school board committees. Self-care. I'm an amateur actor and singer, and I love being in plays. I think that helps me kind of exercise my empathy muscle, and I'm looking forward to theater coming back. I'm working on a play right now that I'm looking forward to putting up in July.
Hi, I'm Andrew Spink. I'm one of the alternates. What I do, I work at a legal nonprofit. I help low-income people Well, a couple different things, mostly getting, helping people get SSI, SSD benefits, representing them in hearings in front of the administrative law judges and beyond. So I've lived in Geneva for about 5.5 years now. I guess the sort of self-care thing is I'm really involved in the local music scene, playing some keyboard. I used to, before Sean Creek closed, used to play there a lot. And yeah, so you might see me out there. That's kind of like what I'm doing. I'm not doing this.
Good.
Hi, I'm Will Wolf. That is a real name. I know a lot of people were doubting that, but it is a real name, I assure you. So I work at Del Lago. I work in the back of house and offices. That's a pretty fun job. I get to see a lot of cool stuff there. So I've lived in Geneva since I think 2011 with 1 year hiatus from 2019 to 2020. So I moved back just in time to get locked down. But that was a good place to be. I found Geneva was a very comforting place to be during a lockdown, so that was really nice. For self-care, I like to go to a lake to disc golf. It's been really nice lately for that, so that's kind of been where I go after all my stuff I do. And I also play Dungeons and Dragons pretty adamantly, so.
Good. Thank you.
I'm Carrie Coron. I'm an alternate as well. I've been here for 21 years. Didn't grow up and go to school here until I got called CC. I also have a multiracial family. I have a African-American daughter, a Hispanic daughter, and a Caucasian son. And then my fiance and soon-to-be stepson are also African-American. So we're kind of blended, everybody under my household. I am a registered nurse, formerly hospital nurse for about 6.5 years, but I've been with Finger Lakes DDSO as a nurse out in Newark group homes for another 6.5 years, I think it's been. Self-care is difficult with children from 4 to 17. One just graduated this past weekend. But I am a bit of an artist when I get a chance. I guess that might be it, but it's few and far between.
Hey everybody, my name is RJ Raposa. I grew up in Geneva until I was the age of 10 and resettled here as a grown-up in 1997. Been here ever since. I serve as Associate Director of Career Advising at Lemoyne College in Syracuse, and I'm an adjunct professor at Finger Lakes Community College. My husband and I live on Humbert Street, and stepdad of 3 adult children now at this point, doing their own crazy things. For self-care, I think there's a lot of things I have involved. Gerald and I have been involved in some artistic things together, but in the summer, we go camping in Northeast Pennsylvania, where I don't get Wi-Fi. Enough said. Yeah, quiet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Johnson. I have worked for the state of New York for the last 20 years. I'm also a reverend at Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church. I'd like to thank my church family for showing up for us this evening. I've lived in Geneva for about 13 or 14 years. I have 3 adult children, 28, 26, and 22, all college grads. 2 graduated from Geneva. 1 just graduated from Brockport with a biology major, so pretty excited about that. And what I do for self-care, I ain't gonna go into no sermon, I promise, but my faith is really important to me, so I pray for my self-care. It brings me comfort and it brings me peace. So for me, that is what I do. I also will walk and get a little time to yourself. So that's my life in a nutshell.
Hello everyone, Brian Whitley, born and raised here in Geneva. Father of 3, husband of 1. I'm the father of 3 children, ages 16, 14, and 11. I am employed by Ontario ARC, where I teach the college experience at Hobart and Smith. Also am a pastor by the calling. For self-care, I had the opportunity of going away with my family for vacation. I just got back over the weekend and, just finding opportunities to go away and just kind of clear our head and get away from the phone calls and computers and everything else. And so, and I also to share with Teresa opportunity to exercise my faith as well. That's who I am.
Good evening, my name is Ahmad Whitfield. I'm married, 3 beautiful children, 3 other children, so 6 total. I volunteer all the time throughout the community for Boys and Girls Club. I work for Catholic Charities. Currently, I'm self-employed. I'm a local barber. I go to Mount Calvary Church of God in Christ. For self-care, I normally train people, I train myself. As far as boxing, working out. I also pray, as these two said. And I also spend a lot of time. We have a close-knit family, so I spend a lot of time with family, so they keep me out of trouble. But seriously, spending time with my family is my go-to for self-care. My kids keep me young. And I'm also an advocate as well, so me being able to speak to other young gentlemen like myself, it keeps me ready for the world.
Thank you.
I'm Charles Bernard. I was born and raised in Geneva, married to a retired school teacher. My 3 sons all graduated from Geneva High School. I have 5 grandchildren, so I do a lot of self-care. I'm a retired nurse with over 20 years of mental health and substance abuse treatment, and I felt that might be a necessary cog in this wheel. And as far as my self-care, the mayor sees me most evenings walking my dog, and he and I discuss what's bothering us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Farrell. I am a graduate student, actually at the University of Minnesota, so remote. I'm working on my PhD, which I swear to myself I will finish sometime soon. It's in African history. I study Liberia in the 19th century. My husband is actually on the other side of the room, Virgil Slade. We live here in Geneva. What do I do for mental health? I've been trying, there's a theme of trying to get off our devices. I've been trying to limit my screen time and get back into reading for pleasure as opposed to just for my dissertation research. So that's a current project. And I also like to go running, not in heat like this. You will not see me down by the lake on a Tuesday, but when it's nice.
Welcome. And last but not least, Amaris.
So speaking of self-care, I took a break from work and lost track of time. So I'm already doing a really good job of, showing that I'm the person who will roll in late. So sorry about that. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Livingston County, which is about an hour from here. I grew up in a town that was so small that it didn't have a stoplight, so it makes Geneva look really cosmopolitan. Although I did manage to move away and live in Philadelphia, New York City. So I've been in some bigger cities. but we've worked our way back to the Finger Lakes. I'm a mom, so I have a 4-year-old, and he is the delight of my heart. I was the person who's like, I'm not gonna have kids, and here I am. He's like the best decision I've made. I'm married. My husband's a graduate student at Cornell. He's studying city planning. In my day job, I'm a nonprofit lawyer, so I'm helping folks going through evictions and going through foreclosures. So that's a really like heavy thing right now. So when you're talking about self-care, I'm like, self-care, like, you know, what does that look like when there's so much need? But I garden, so I'm planting and I'm really happy. Like every day I go out and I water my plants, I'm growing my tomatoes. And I'm trying to go on vacation this week. We'll see how that works out. I'm not sure that that's going to work out. I might be doing a lot of work remotely, but I'm delighted to be here with all of you. This is important work, and I'm glad to be part here, and I apologize for my tardiness.
Thank you. So I think that was, did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Okay, so obviously we're just going to dive right in. I have down appointment of chair and co-chair. And I guess I will start like obviously going down with the agenda, but how this can flow is just if you want to, it's just kind of a dialogue and discussion on these items that we have, just you guys have decisions to be made, and then we can kind of go from there. All decisions that we kind of need to like look at or have discussions in, they may not be completed today, and that is okay. Again, you know, we're learning as we go. Like I've mentioned before, there are boards out there that, you know, in this sense, however, it's got to be tailored to Geneva. So things are going to be different. And that's for the betterment of everybody, I think, to kind of have you guys come up with how we're going to operate, aside from the things that we, you know, have to fall under. But with that being said, for the appointment of the chair and co-chair, I didn't know, I wanted to open it up to see if somebody was already, like, yes, I have people that are like, yep, I want to go. And then people are like, no, I'm good. You know, so if there is somebody that is already ready or is would like to be the chair and co-chair, and we will discuss those roles. They're really just kind of having more of internal conversations with myself, and then, you know, kind of just steering the board on the outside of decisions and being kind of that voice for the board. Obviously, you have a chair and a co-chair, and I say you tag team, but if one is absent, the other one will take the lead in facilitating along with me, and then anything that comes up, we can discuss it, and then we'll bring it to the board, as needed. So with that said, is there anybody that is interested in being a chair or a co-chair? Don't all jump at once, please.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So I know in the local law, specifically in 15.6.2E, on page 7, it says that we're supposed to choose the chair and vice chairperson every January.
Yes.
Right? So I'm wondering if we are choosing people that are going to serve until January 2022, or if they would then serve for like a year and a half. The reason I'm asking this is because obviously in the next several months while we're getting things up and running, the chair position will be perhaps different than the responsibilities once the board is actually like meeting and hearing complaints. And so I just wanted to check what we all thought about in terms of a term for the chair and vice chair.
And we can open that discussion to you guys. I guess as far as like recommending a suggestion, we have a lot of work to do before, now in January. If I feel that if you're going to have obviously the chair will learn the ropes, and then in January, we will do like an annual meeting and we can reevaluate and discuss. And if the chair is like, I don't want to do this, I will step down and have somebody else. If the chair is still interested and is still we're kind of steering that, I think that we should keep it for another year just for consistency purposes. And then obviously if anything, God forbid, comes up or anything like that needs to change. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. But you guys are obviously more than, you could say whatever you would like to do or how you would like to steer that. So anybody else want to chime in, or is everyone okay with, having the chair? And then if the chair decides in January they do not want to continue, then we just put it back out. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Is there anybody opposed? Let's start there. Okay. All right. So is there anybody that wants to volunteer to be the chair?
I'm interested along with them.
Okay, and is so how about a chair and co-chair? Yeah,
I'm also interested.
you're interested? So we have 4 people? Okay. We're going to vote, people. Okay, so we will hold on that, and we're going to, and I think the mayor touched on discussion of terms. And he mentioned about, in the local law, it states that the council will appoint the terms, starting with the initial. He, as you guys know, last week I sent you guys all the term dates and things like that. And from the outline that we had, the initial outline we started, and they would like to accept recommendation as to how you feel the term should be appointed. And I know some of you brainstormed a little bit, but if you would like to kind of give a recommendation, submit to council, you can send it to me via hard copy. We can discuss it now. If everyone's like, oh, I think we should do it like this, we can submit one to council, but it would more so be, they'll take that recommendation and then kind of base their appointments off of that. So I'm going to open the floor to anybody that would like to discuss that.
I'd like to say something about that real quick. So there's 3 groups, and one is going to serve for initial term of 1.5 years, potentially 4.5 years if they're in, and then the other one will be 2.5 years, potentially 5.5 years, and then the third one will be 3.5 years, potentially 6.5 years.
Yeah. So reappointed for 6. Yeah. So the initial term will obviously the initial terms. So these ones 2022.
Right.
And then, and then the following year would be the same amount, and then 2024. So 2024 would be the last initial group. And then if you want to be, obviously, within those years, if you want to be reappointed, you can be, obviously that's a discussion.
Okay.
So,
So what I emailed you before,
Yep.
so you heard a little bit of my brainstorming, was we have what council has called aspirational goals. So they have aspired to put mental health professionals and members of the clergy and attorneys on the board. And my feeling was that if we clumped all of those people together in the same group, it might be difficult for council to reappoint all of those aspirational goals all at once. So my suggestion to Erica, and this is just brainstorming, was to have one of the members of the clergy be in the 3.5-year group, and for the mental health professional to be in the 3.5-year group or the 2.5-year group, but not the 1.5-year group, as well as the attorney and the other member of the clergy. So we have the groups that were the aspirational goal people would be on the board just for a longer period of time at first, so that council wouldn't be, so the council could have some more flexibility in finding ways of diversifying the board over time. It would be easier for council to do. Does that make sense? Okay. Having said that, I think that my particular skill set tends to lend itself towards helping startup companies start up and helping companies move, and helping with the initial part of how things work. So I would be happy and willing to be in the shorter, the 1.5-year group, because I think that what I'm going to be most useful for on the board is all the stuff that I've learned from attending all these city council meetings. I'll be able to sort of voice, oh, this is what the majority of council feels like, this is what the minority of council feels like, and try to sort of allow that those different voices to sort of echo into this group. But I don't think that it needs to be for a long time. So that's my feelings.
Thank you, Charles. Anybody else have any feedback on the terms or selection?
This is kind of a nitpicky point, but so if the first term is actually 3.5 years, because I mean the local law says 3, and then caps it at 6. So I'm wondering if the person who's serving 3.5, does that mean they can't actually serve an additional 3, because that'll put them over 6, that'll put them at 6.5. And I guess maybe I'm thinking the way around that is I don't think there's anything that says that the members need to be selected. Or do they, I don't know, well, actually, no, it's okay, the terms would commence January 1st. So I guess my question is sort of like the initial, like, kind of half year. Does that have to be a separate term?
That's a good question. I could have council clarify that.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
To start the terms in January.
Yeah, we will. We'll start them in January. I mean, because that's how it reads. Right now, obviously, this is the getting up processes, trying to get everything situated. And I think that's the same thing with the chair as well, kind of designating a chair and co-chair, then they can actually begin in January, what we're going to be doing. So if everyone is okay with that, we can take the suggestions that we had talked about. And Jess, you were going to make a suggestion, so feel free to chime in, and then we can go forward for.
Sure. I was just gonna say that, if a person was on a 3.5 year and then 3 year, they could then stop at 2.5 years on their second term and then be replaced, just as if somebody moved out of Geneva or decided to run for council, or, somebody in their family started working for the police department, or any of the other reasons that, so I'm assuming that even though the appointments are supposed to be in January, there will be reasons why people will serve partial terms.
Absolutely.
Things. The other thing I was going to say in terms of the terms and replacing people is if we look at the breakdown geographically in terms of we need to have one person from each of the supervisory districts. I did notice that we have a preponderance of people from supervisory district 2, which is wards 3 and 4. And I noticed specifically because I'm the person in in District 3, that the other person in my district is Will, if I'm correct. And Will was, if I'm also correct, the mayoral nominee, which means that, am I not correct or not?
I don't think there was a mayoral nominee.
They were not appointed. I don't think they were appointed. She was appointed.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is because one of the term limits is for the third term. Was for the mayoral person to be there. And there was, the mayor did make a nominee that was then appointed. And if I didn't go back and rewatch the meeting again, but I believe it was Will. So I assumed that Will would be that person since he was the nominee. Which would mean that I'm the only other person in that district. So similar to the replacing of clergy and mental health and attorneys, if I went out in if I did a 1-year term, I would have to be replaced by somebody from wards 5 and 6. How difficult is that? I don't know, but I'm just pointing it out.
Okay, I'm gonna make that note.
So I'm not sure if that's correct. So I think there just needs to be one person from each supervisory district on the board at any given time. So if you cycled off, you wouldn't need to be replaced by someone in supervisory district 3 because there would already be there would still be someone from supervisory district 3 on the board.
I would agree, except it just gets confusing.
It is.
On page 4,
Okay.
it specifically says that, I'm trying to find a way through this paragraph. So 3 members, this is about 5 lines from the bottom. Letter C, 3 members shall be appointed for a term of 3 years, one of whom shall have been nominated by the mayor, one shall have been appointed by the community at large, and one shall have been appointed to the council pursuant to that subsection, which is the district subsection. So one of the people that leads there has to be representing a district.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, so for example, if I even though I don't think that we'll necessarily be thinking of ourselves in these ways, Will is the mayoral nominated person, so he's already designated there. So the district wouldn't have a person who is their member of the 9. It's weird.
Thank you for reading that. I hadn't looked at it that way, and that does make sense.
Yes. So we could make that note and then discuss it. I think that if you would like to do, because I know you had submitted, Charles submitted, and you submitted kind of ideas, and if I missed anybody else, forgive me, but I think if we can get a solid plan as to how we as a group, and it could be via email because it's easier to read it, we could submit that to the mayor so he could submit it to council for that. And then I will touch base with the mayor anyways to talk about, obviously the appointments will start, they can appoint at any time within the next, couple council meetings, but they'll start officially in January. So that works for everybody. Okay, and then the mayor, that'll be up to council who they decide where, but if we can strategically let them know, like you had mentioned, that was a good point that you had mentioned about that, so. Okay. Any other questions on discussion of terms? Okay. So we're going to move down to open meetings law and confidentiality. A majority of you, or if not, you guys should have, I had sent the actual public officers law, Article 7 of open meetings law. As we all know, in the local law, it states that we should fall under open meetings law. I have been in and out with this and trying to figure it out, making sure we're staying, with that. And I know a couple of questions have come up with executive sessions. What will not be for obviously public, what are discussions that will be confidential, things of that nature. So speaking with legal today, being that we fall under open meetings law, our executive sessions will fall under the executive sessions where they take place. And a majority of them was, if you look at section 105, if we're going to be discussing F, obviously any of those, the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Obviously, we will head into executive session for that. And then anything else that falls under that. And just to note for public, when any of those come up, we will let you know, just as we do in any public agenda. And it talks about executive session and why we may be going into executive session. On top of that, and I will state, so this meeting, obviously today, is live streamed on YouTube. Given that restrictions have been lifted, it won't be live streamed. It'll be open meetings just like this. We are going to, as we go forward, to discuss when we'll be meeting, where we'll be meeting. We have to just make sure we maintain seating for the public and things like that. And so we will, cross those bridges as we get there to brainstorm different locations. Right now, obviously, it's working, and we're on live. And if anything comes down the pipeline that we may need to do live streaming, we're able to do that. We just have to make sure there's enough seating for public, and obviously, we can't, we can't determine that ahead of time when we come in. So we'll cross those when we get there. Right now, this is obviously the initial meeting. Having it streamed, is best with the limited seating we have. But on top of that, so that is where the executive sessions fall under. I also want to touch on, I don't know if did you send it to everybody? Amaris had mentioned about the email that she had sent about like a kind of like a leadership retreat with the group to kind of get to know one another. That does not have to be, that does not have to be live, as well as the recommended potential trainings and orientations that you guys will participate in. They do not have to be live. And I will emphasize, they don't have to be live. However, that is only because we are not necessarily talking about PRB business. So do not come in and say, oh, can we talk about this? Because then that means we have to jump back in under the law to hop on and get things streaming. Teresa.
Okay, so my question is the live meeting.
Open meetings?
Open meetings, live meetings.
No.
So the PRB, obviously, we are formed to discuss, complaints about the police. And we're gonna have executive sessions as well, which will be closed and people won't know. Are we gonna decide so our open meetings won't discuss any complaints, anything at all? Okay, because I just wanted to make sure, because I was a little nervous when you said we're gonna have open meetings when you're talking about complaints. I was like, okay, I understand everybody wants to know but with open meetings have to be some type of rules.
Yes, absolutely.
So my concern with, I'm just gonna put it out there, a lot of people weren't happy, a lot of people were happy with this board. And when you say open meeting, you have to have something where they know there's an expectation that they're not coming to hear a complaint or not coming to find out what's going on, or they're not coming, because people will come with those expectations. When you say this is an open meeting of a PRB board, well, we thought we were gonna hear this, and we thought this meeting was gonna be that. So I think we need to set clear guidelines that our meetings that are open, you won't come and find out if somebody made a complaint.
Yeah. Yep. So touching on that, that's the perfect thing. So obviously with the agendas, we will have agendas that go out. Part of open meetings law, and I have to do this for 3 other boards that I serve on also, we have to advertise a week in advance. People will have to see the agenda 72 hours beforehand so they know what's going on it. As far as executive session meetings, we will host like this. However, if they are executive sessions, we will open it up, but we will immediately do a motion for standard practices to go into executive session, and that's when they close. And then if there is no action taken, we just come out of it and let them know there was no action taken. And then again, we have to follow those proceedings if as we learn, and that is on pause. Legal and I and Sage will be discussing with them as we move forward when it comes time to take cases, when things are brought up for, what they're trying to, if they're trying to hear what the action was or what the decision was from the board to the public, those things have to be strategically planned, and that'll have to go through legal before we do that. But right now, this session is open, and then if we had to talk about something or discuss something, people will simply see on the agenda executive session, and they'll see exactly the word for word that I read as to why we're in executive session. So that's how that happens, because I understand what you mean completely, and that's why the power of agendas are so, because it's like, there's nothing, because we worry about that too. Sometimes when there's hot button topics on our agendas, right? You're like, okay, everyone, it's going to be a packed house, and then there's other things that people are like, oh, there's 2 people. So, same thing for this evening. Like I was just telling Sage, it was like, there could be 3 people or there could be abundance of people. And we kind of just got to gauge that and then go from there. But yes, and I'm strong about making sure we get an agenda out, and we're staying in compliance with that for those exact reasons for everybody, if that makes sense. Any other questions on that aspect of executive sessions and trainings? Yes.
Well, so then for other things that don't involve complaints made about an officer, because that's subject to Rule 105F there. So if we're if the board is discussing like a disciplinary matrix and adopting that, and that has to be open, right?
Yeah, so all of these, as you've seen on the PRB responsibilities, the initial little outline, it'll tell you what that's going to look like, the processes, all of that stuff is public. Even like this meeting, we're kind of just getting it we're letting people know the processes as to what we're looking at is going to happen, when we will be open sessions, when will be closed sessions, and what that looks like. Again, emphasis on the confidentiality. As soon as something comes up or I receive something and we discuss it with the board, that is within the board, and it can't come out. It's an executive session. And again, we have people that we will notify people as soon as possible on that. And then the board itself will have to obviously practice the confidentiality. Like I've mentioned, that's really big with this board, and things that we have discussions here once we are in executive session that cannot leave executive session without some issues in turn. Or I know we have in our local law, council can have somebody dismissed if they feel that they are not living up to those PRB responsibilities with confidentiality. So I do stress that, as everyone knows, I stress confidentiality a lot, because there's bigger pictures and there's things, that go on that we don't know, and we have to take that time, which is why the trainings and orientations are important, not mandated, but recommended trainings are important for this group. So that way we're able to maintain that for the betterment of everybody, not just the protected party, but also for, members as well. So it is a close-knit community. We're not shy to that. So, everybody knows everybody, and, you don't want to leave a meeting and then 5 minutes later, whoa, I heard this happen in executive session. And I'm like, wait a minute, why, how? I just try to avoid all that. It has, it does happen. It has happened, and I don't want that to happen. It's just not good for anybody in that sense. So with that piece, just emphasis on the confidentiality. And I know Charles had mentioned some stuff about just having a conversation, and you wanted to get feedback. You said it from, was it the Amaris, right?
Well,
what was your take on that?
The confidentiality piece is very important in this context, I think. And some of you have experience with doctor-patient privilege or attorney-client privilege, or I don't know how confession works in some churches, but there are, confidentiality between a clergy person and their, what do you like to say? Your parishioners. So at some point, and it doesn't need to be now, but I think at some point, as we are all learning to exercise that muscle in our brains, to respect the confidentiality of the name of a minor. If a minor is named in a complaint that comes before us, we're not allowed to say that in public, right?
Correct.
Or in open meetings law, generally, people are allowed to speak anonymously. For example, if there is a victim of domestic abuse who wants to speak before city council or a board, but doesn't want their name to appear in minutes so that they can't be Googled, we need to be able to speak about that person at sort of different levels of confidentiality. So if we're together alone by ourselves, we can use the name of the child. But as soon as we are making a report that might be public, we need to be able to redact that level of information. And just that practice of figuring out how we can talk about certain things and how we cannot talk about certain things, and in which settings we can and cannot, I think it would be useful just to have, to be reminded what those rules are for executive session.
Yeah.
I believe that if we, for example, were to be reviewing body camera footage at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been foils in the past of body camera footage to be used in specific law cases, for example. The police review those and redact, if somebody's social security number or phone number appears in the video, they redact those images. We would probably be seeing more unredacted video at that point in an investigation process if we needed to be reviewing that as such. But that would also be something that we would not then make part of the public report. So we might have a part of our reports that were made to council, but that were confidential. They were unredacted, and then a part of our reports that were being made so that they would go in the annual report or a more public report, and those would need to have a different level of being redacted. Does that all make sense? Okay.
Any other questions or comments on that?
Are we considered a quasi-judicial body? Because under section 108 of the Public Officers Law, this is the last page, it states, nothing contained in this article shall be construed as extending the provisions hereof to judicial, which we're not, or quasi-judicial, which my question is, except proceedings of the Public Service Commission and zoning boards of appeals. So we're not doing discipline. We're an investigative body. We recommend discipline. Maybe we're not quasi-judicial, but it was a question.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, but I'll clarify that just to make sure if we are or not. And then again, yeah, just offering recommendations so you are correct on that end. And I'll double check that for you, for everybody. So any other questions on the executive sessions, confidentiality? Anybody have anything that they want to emphasize or bring up in that sense, in that topic?
Just like to kind of echo what Charles had said, in my point of reference is in higher ed, we work a lot with FERPA about personal information, but also in Title IX. So I'm thinking about, it reminds me a lot of keeping all the parties confidential in different settings, and some people are mandatory reporters and some people aren't, and who must disclose but can't disclose. It's reminding me of that. So I think it's going to be something we're going to be discussing.
Yes, all the time.
Great length every time. Which part of this is going to be that as we balance public information and public disclosure and expectations too. Because there's expectation that of the due diligence that we're getting, and so it is sometimes frustrating for one firsthand on the, in the case of a college student, when somebody says, why haven't I heard what I put a complaint in, why haven't I heard anything? Well, maybe you can't because of whatever reason, so we have to kind of balance that out.
I think all of these perspectives are going to be really useful to us as we think about who we are and what our job is.
Yeah.
And some things we're going to be looking at that are going to be very sensitive, and we can't just turn around and talk about all of that. I mean, you're all extremely wise people. I'm going to learn more from you than you are from me, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, these are all good perspectives.
Yeah, and I think also keeping in mind too, and I know that we have it on the outline, but it talks about obviously recusal purposes as well. That also falls in line too. I mean, and I think everyone should use their better judgment on that. And if, obviously, God forbid something comes up and it's somebody that you may know, or, I also tell people to use your better judgment to say, I think I need to step back. That kind of gets sticky and muddy. And then you have situations where you're out and people are bringing it up. And I think that if you can kind of use your better judgment on that as members, to kind of say, you know what, I have no idea because you aren't, you are recusing yourself. That kind of works too. But again, like just sensitive topics. And once we cross or get ready for that, and legal will give us a more direction on that. Again, what you said about, we can talk about names in closed doors. Publicly, I know we do this, obviously as the administrator for human rights, when we're having a discussion, it's, person A or person B or, to kind of get to change it from their actual name. That also helps with confidentiality for that person if they don't want to have their name. And I know that if somebody has come to me and they've said, can I submit this complaint, but I don't want, my name on there. When I bring it to the board too, it's with just person A or person B or whatever we decide. But I think that helps too for comfort for people that are going through an experience and situation.
This is kind of backtracking a little bit to executive sessions. I think I read in open public meeting law that you can designate members of the public to come into executive session with you. Would that allow us to bring our alternates into executive session?
Yes.
With us, and would it allow us to bring you or a staff member who's designated into executive session?
Yeah, so I will be in on the executive sessions. Obviously, I will be taking the journey with you guys, just for absolutely.
And then you're like, oh, now I got to recuse myself. Like whatever, however.
Yeah.
It develops. I mean,
No, that
sometimes you don't realize initially there is a conflict.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that, actually. And I will double check that with the mayor, but I think that, if something happens, somebody cannot attend, we will, have to have the alternates available as well.
Not prevents, what allows us to know if there is a, per se, serial complainer that is just like, I'm gonna complain every day for the next year about that cop because his dog,
Yep, absolutely.
How do we know this?
That's a good question, actually, and I don't have that answer, but I think that it's going to be one of those. Now we're going to have to watch out for those serial complainers and be like, But I think
gave somebody an idea.
Yeah, you did give somebody an idea. But I think once they come in, again, this will all have to be recorded on a data sheet. Everything, even the person, even if it is an anonymous complaint, the person submitting the complaint, if let's say I say, Jess, can you take this in for me? She will have to give her information. So we kind of have to make sure we cover those types of bases. Anybody that, even if any of you receive it and the person doesn't want to be disclosed, you would receive it, and it's the confidentiality piece as well.
Okay, so in our role, the complaint doesn't come directly to us. Does it go to the police first, or because my question is, like you said, a serial complainer or whatever, if it goes directly to the police and they say, well, we know this person complains all the time, will we ever see the complaint? So does it come to us? Do we go and request? I mean, it's so new that it's almost like we're learning on the fly.
Yeah.
And depending on how many, if somebody doesn't like the police or whatever, and it's something small, nobody's gonna be asking. Our problem that we're gonna face is there's something major that happens. And everybody's gonna be looking at these 9 people or 11 people like, what are you gonna do about it? And that's like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss. Are we waiting for the police to give us the complaint? Do we go out, do they come direct? How do we receive a complaint? Because everybody knows who we are now.
Yeah.
So you're on the street, or you're on the PRB, it's my complaint.
No, that can happen. That can happen. They can do that. So the streamlining purposes, and again, that's something for us to discuss. You know, I've received your complaint, I have your complaint, and then, you know, we'll go through the process of what that looks like. So they are going to receive a receipt in a sense that somebody has it on the PRB, and we have it, and then we can have a discussion if something comes in, let's say next week, and I'm like, hey, do we need to schedule a meeting to have a discussion?
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I did do a timeline of a complaint page.
Yeah.
But the recommended process that gets put on post in at least a couple different languages.
Yeah.
So that folks can submit there, and that's the recommended process, so that if I'm approached in Wegmans, I can say, you know what?
John, and he is a retired RPD who specializes in going over general orders in law enforcement, policies and procedures, and things of that nature. The only thing is, and I guess it could be either or, but it's that does not include, obviously, the GOs, the policies and procedures for the police department, employee handbook, all of that will come to you guys. So I have not, it is on my list. I'm still waiting for that. So you'll get that within the next week or two. Yeah.
Before anything happens, if we can build a rapport with them, that would,
Yeah.
If we don't have the trust of the community, whatever we do is gonna be looked at, basically. So that's just.
I wanted to offer a few hopeful words here. And I think, first of all, the majority of us were unanimous appointments by the entire council, left and right, and however you want to parse that. But I think we've gotten a lot of support from that quarter. And I think that the chief of police's complaint at that June 3rd meeting, I think that you're talking about, was more about council and not us. So
When you say more about council.
it was more about the members.
It was more about the members of council.
Okay.
But the members of council voted us unanimously in. So, I mean, he can say that it really wasn't about us, but some of the language that was used was directly about this group. Don't let another one get it, about the process that it was made. So I'm not saying that it's the group itself that they're mad or whoever is upset with, it's the process. And I mean, I'm just gonna say it. We already know that it's being opposed. The group itself is being opposed right now. So we can't go in with these sugar-coated blinders that we're gonna be met with happiness and because it's not gonna be that way. And my point is that this board is serious, it's a serious board. And it has serious repercussions of what we do. But we have to be able to mend not only our fences, but the fences with the community and the police. Because right now, if you go out and ask 25 people, you'll get 15 to say yes or 10 to say no. It's not there.
Yeah.
It's so polarized that most people wanted to know, who are these people? What are these people doing? What is their agenda? So now that we are out there, that's gonna be some questions that people are gonna need to ask. So I need us to be prepared for that. And some of these trainings that we're having, even the implicit bias training, I know Sim, he's very good.
Yeah, he's
excellent. We need to know that people are gonna look at everything that we have done ever and want